researcher reveals peculiar features of alleged UFO materials that he examined, noting that one of the objects he looked at had, quote, extraordinarily altered isotope ratios of magnesium, end quote. Nolan argued that there is, quote, no good reason humans have for altering the isotope ratios, end quote, of such simple metal, he said. Dr. Gary Nolan, a professor of pathology at Stanford University, who has been working with people studying materials originating from alleged UAPs, that is, unidentified flying objects, are often referred to nowadays, has shared some details about his work. In an interview with Vice Motherboard, as Nolan explained, some of the objects he looked at appear as nondescript lumps of metal, though almost none of the objects he examined are uniform. He said they're all these hodgepodge mixtures. Each individual case will be composed of a similar set of elements, but they will be inhomogeneous. One of the materials from the so-called Ubatuba UAP event in Brazil, he said, has extraordinarily altered isotope ratios of magnesium. It was interesting, he said, because another piece from the same event was analyzed in the same instrument at the same time. This is an extraordinarily sensitive instrument called a nano-SIMS, SIMS, secondary ion mass spec, he said. He said it had perfectly correct isotope ratios for what you would expect from magnesium found anywhere on Earth. Meanwhile, the other one was just way off, like 30% off the ratios, he said. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. The problem, Nolan explained, is that there is no good reason humans have for altering the isotope ratios of a simple metal like magnesium, as while such a feat is doable, there is simply no reason for performing this. He added that 2 of the dozen or so objects he examined, quote, seemed to be not playing by our rules, end quote, clarifying that it meant said objects had altered isotope ratios and not them exhibiting phenomena like levitation, for example. In most cases, Nolan said, the material from these alleged UFOs or UAPs are, quote, leftovers of some sort of process that these objects spit out, end quote, with witnesses of some instances saying that the observed objects initially appeared unstable, only to become stable and move away after spitting out a bunch of stuff, quote unquote. Nolan said, what are the circumstances in some of these cases? For instance, in some cases, the witnesses state that the observed objects appeared unstable or in some kind of distress, then it spits out a bunch of stuff, now the object appears stable and it moves off, it looks like it fixed itself, end quote. One hypothesis, Nolan said, is that the ejected material is part of the mechanism of the flying object, quote, uses for moving around, and when things get out of whack, the object has to offload it, end quote. He said that begs the question, again assuming that the things are real at all, what are they using it for? If there's altered isotope ratios, are they using the altered isotope ratios? Are the altered isotope ratios a result of the propulsion mechanism? He mused. He said again, pure speculation. When the ratios get that far out of whack, do they have to offload it because it's no longer useful in propulsion? The researcher added that smarter people than him will come up with better reasons, and that is what the fun of science is about. He concluded the data is there, the explanation is not there. It still has to be found. And this is on Sputnik by Andrei Drgalin. This is fascinating. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.